Hi, I'm Tim. I am the Tinkering Turtle. Today, we're going to talk about the Suntour NCX suspension seat post. I want to talk about why I chose it, how to adjust it, and how to lube it up every season. Let's get into it. So I've had my Suntour NCX suspension seat post for about 3 years now. And every season, it does really good all season long. And then at the beginning of every season, I've noticed that it gets a little squeak as you pedal and you push down one side of the seat or the other. You'll get a little bit of a squeak going. And all you have to do is lube it up. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. And basically clean all the gunk that accumulates with it. When you buy your Suntour NCX, if it doesn't come with a neoprene cover, order one separately. They're really helpful in keeping the dirt and debris and the junk off of the posts. Okay, working on these is pretty easy. What I can say is that this is a very comfortable seat post if it's set properly. And it depends on how you like to set it though. Some people like a little stiffer ride. I like a very cushy, relaxed feel. So I only tighten up the adjustment until I don't bottom out as I jump on the seat. Because what happens, so when you look at this, you've got one roller that runs down the back of the piston and one that sits on top. And what happens is you can actually run the roller all the way down and bottom out if you have this set too lightly. So the adjustment is just adjusted up till it's just above that. That'll give you the cushiest rides as you go over bumps. But like I said before, every season I tend to get a little bit of a squeak. And for a while I thought it was in the seat itself, but no, it's in these little hinge points on the Suntour seat post. So what you want to do is you want to clean as much as you can get a hold of, and then you want to lube the joints and you want to move them up and down. But to do that, you can't have a spring load in there. So what you do is in the end of this, you'll see that there's a 6mm hex wrench adjustment in there. You want to remove that completely. And it looks like this. It's just an aluminum piece that has a hex on one side and then fits around the spring on the other. Then you remove your spring and you'll see that it's got a small plastic cap. Now I want to talk about the springs. The spring that comes with the Suntour seat post is for normal sized people. I actually bought a heavier duty spring. This I think runs, if I remember right, 285 pounds and up. This runs down to, the original one runs down to 140 pounds, and then you can buy a spring that's lighter duty even if you're a smaller rider. So that's one nice thing about this system is for $15 or $16, I can't remember what the cost was. You just buy a spring that fits your weight, and then that way you get the best ride possible. So now what you'll find is now that I've removed the spring, this moves freely. And you'll see that the piston has even dropped down in. So to get the piston back out, I'm going to want to... So what I do is I push the piston back out. I'll take a shop rag, and I bought this little Forkboost Lube. This is for lubricating forks, Forkboost Lube. And I'll take a little bit of that. So for shocks and for, in this case, front forks, or in this case, a piston on your seat post, you're just going to want to get in there and rub as much as that as possible. Anyway, I can't get the piston out. So I'm just going to push it up until I can see it, and I'm going to take and I'm going to get as much of that grime and grease and lubricant from last year off with the towel. And you can see that lubricant is nice and black from the season. Now once I've cleaned all the grime and gook off of that, as much as I can. What I want to do is take another one. Now, I like to lubricate these joints. I've got a couple different lubricants that I've used in my woodworking. I've got a silicone-free and then a gun treatment one, and both of these are good lubricants. And I'm sure there's a ton more out there, so you can use whichever one you think is going to work best. And maybe try one year, and if it doesn't work out long term, then switch to another one. Now I just cover up my bench, and I squirt a little bit of lube in each joint that I can get to. And I wipe off any excess that isn't getting down into that joint. And this is the important part, is you want to work those hinges as best you can. Now there's also the little rollers, so you want to see if you can get in there. And just kind of repeat the process, moving the hinge until you can see that it's well lubricated. I will usually do a few different applications of it, trying to squeeze the lubrication down in those joints. Like I said, wipe off the excess. You don't need the extra lubrication. You just want it down in the joints, and you want to work the seat back and forth. And when you get that done, you want to put your spring back up inside. When you put this back up in there, your piston comes back up and out, and then you'll take your aluminum nut and screw that back in. Okay, now at this point, I have a fairly clean setup. I've wiped all the excess lubricant off as best I can, and I'm going to want to take an extra little bit of the Forkboost Lube, and I'll put this in the description of the video in case you want it. And I'll pour a little on the rag, and I'll get in there and I'll put it on the silver part of the piston, just to give that a little extra lubrication as it works itself up and down. And then of course I'll wipe off any extra that I can get to. Now I'm just gonna bring the bottom part in. Notice I didn't put the original spring back in. I still have the heavy duty one. Now I'm gonna go back over and I'm gonna put this in the bike, and I'm gonna jump on it and see if I can get it to bottom out. And if I can, then I'll pull it back out and I'll adjust that bolt. If I can't get it to bottom out, I might pull it out and loosen that up a little bit, just to see if I can get a nice soft ride. Now this isn't adjusted to my height. This is going to be low. It's just for me easier to get on and bounce on it. And I've said before, and I've talked about this in other videos, I always buy the Suntour NCX seat post in a 27.2 diameter, regardless of what the bike is. And then I will buy a seat post shim that goes around it to bring it up to the size of whatever bike it's in. That way I can just take the seat and the seat post off of this bike when I'm done with it and put it in another bike. And it's just a matter of a new $10 shim. I don't have to buy a second seat post, which is really smart. So I've got this pre-adjusted, to no particular tension, but I want to test out and see if I can get it to bottom out. And the way I do that is I get on the seat, sit it up, and I just bounce. Now I can feel it barely bottoming out. So I grab my 6mm hex wrench, bring it back up out of the bike, and I'll just tighten it down about a turn or turn and a half, and then I'll do it again. So that's not bottoming out anymore, and I'm getting good travel. Now these seats, or this seat post, travels up and down about 2 inches. So when you hit a bump, it really takes a lot of the pressure off of your lower back and spine. Now I have to reset the seat height. I didn't loosen the seat, so I don't have to adjust it up or down. Now the way you adjust your seat is you'll get it up to the height you think you want it. You'll put the far side pedal down and you'll put your heel on it, not the ball of your foot, and you'll get up on the seat. If your leg is straight, that means when you pull your ball of your foot back, you'll get a slight bend in your leg. and that's where you want to be to start with. So the seat is set right now to a pretty good height. I might want to come up a little bit for my stroke, and that's maybe 1/4 inch. Just line the nose of the seat up with the frame and clamp it back down. Now this seat is adjusted not only for the tension for the 2 inches of throw on the seat post, but for my height and pedaling. I will put links in the description for the seat post, the Cloud9 seat if you're interested in it. You can get the Cloud9 seat with springs or without springs. I'll put both of those links in the description. I'm a huge fan of the Suntour seat posts. I think out of all the upgrades I've done for my bikes, it's probably the most important and the one I appreciate the most as I go riding every day, because sometimes my bike paths can get a little bumpy and it gets a little hairy when you're out there riding and you're slamming bang, bang, bang. As a matter of fact, before I got the Suntour, I took my bike, not this bike, but another bike, up to Grand Haven and back, which is about 25 miles round trip. And the bike path was pretty bad. It was pretty old once I got up towards Grand Haven, and it just bounced me all the way up there. When I got the Suntour, I was going over those same paths, and it was just smooth riding. It was like riding a floating Cadillac across those bumps. So, huge fan of the Suntour. If you haven't got a suspension seat post, and $100 or so for a Suntour is out of your price range, they do offer a lot of different less expensive seat posts that'll still give you a couple inches of travel. It may not be as smooth as a Suntour, but well worth the money buying a suspension seat post if you want comfort while you're riding. I always try to lift my handlebars up so I can have a more upright position, which puts a little extra pressure on the saddle. And so having that extra give in the saddle makes a really big difference for comfort when you're out there riding. I appreciate you watching to the end of the video. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And I will catch you next time. Have a good one.